Someone left their car at a garage last week, trusting strangers with the most expensive thing they own outside their home. That someone had no idea what happened next. This video exists because one person decided to talk. Someone who spent 14 years working inside UK independent garages and main dealer service departments, starting as an apprentice technician and eventually becoming a service advisor at 2 separate franchised sites. Someone who watched practices develop around them that they initially accepted as normal and gradually came to understand were not. Someone who, after leaving the industry 18 months ago, agreed to describe what actually happens to your car between the moment you hand over the keys and the moment you collect it. What follows is what they told us. Not every garage operates this way. Not every technician behaves as this individual describes. There are honest, skilled, conscientious mechanics working in Britain who do exactly what they are paid to do and nothing more. But according to our source, the incentive structures inside many UK garages, both independent and franchised, create predictable patterns of behaviour that most customers never see and would not accept if they did. By the end of this, you will understand what happens during a basic service that you are not told about. You will understand how additional work is recommended and what influences those recommendations. You will understand what the phrase courtesy check actually means in practice. You will understand how parts are sourced and priced in ways that affect your bill significantly. And you will understand what our source described as the practice that made them feel most uncomfortable throughout their career, which is coming in point number 8. Before we get there, consider this. The last time you left your car at a garage, you handed over the keys, walked away, and had no visibility of anything that happened for several hours. You received a phone call or a message. You were told what the car needed. You made decisions based entirely on information provided by the same organization that profits from those decisions. Our source described that dynamic as the central problem with the UK garage industry. Not dishonesty, they said, not criminality. The central problem is that the customer has no way to verify anything they are told, and the industry has no structural incentive to change that. Point number 1. The first thing our source told us was about the booking process and what happens before your car is touched. When you book your car into a garage, whether independent or franchised, the booking goes onto a job sheet. That job sheet has a value attached to it before the car arrives. At franchised main dealers, according to this individual, daily and weekly labour targets are standard practice. The service department has a revenue target. Each job sheet contributes to that target. And technicians are typically paid on a flat rate system, meaning they earn a fixed time allocation for each job, regardless of how long it actually takes. This creates an immediate and significant incentive structure. A technician completing a job faster than the flat rate earns effectively more per hour. A technician who finds and flags additional work on a vehicle generates more revenue for the department, and depending on the bonus structure, more income for themselves. Our source was clear that this does not automatically mean work is invented. Most additional work flagged by technicians is genuine, but the incentive to look harder than necessary, to classify borderline conditions as requiring immediate attention, and to recommend work that could legitimately wait is built into the financial structure of how technicians are paid and departments are measured. This individual described starting out as an apprentice and being told by more experienced colleagues that a car that leaves the workshop with no additional recommendations is a missed opportunity. That phrase stayed with them, not a missed fault. A missed opportunity. The job sheet reaches the car before a human does, and the human who reaches the car is working within a system designed to generate value beyond what the customer originally booked. But that system, according to our source, begins to operate in ways most customers would find surprising from the very first moments of the service. Point number 2. The courtesy check, also called a vehicle health check or a multi-point inspection, is presented to customers as a complimentary safety service. According to our source, it is the most commercially significant part of many garage visits. The courtesy check involves a technician walking around the vehicle and assessing key components: tyres, brakes, lights, fluid levels, wipers, bodywork condition. The results are compiled into a report, often using a traffic light system. Green items are satisfactory. Amber items are advisory, meaning attention recommended soon. Red items require immediate attention. Our source described how the interpretation of borderline items on a courtesy check is not standardized and is not consistent. A brake pad at 5mm might be classified amber at one garage and red at another, because there is no industry-wide threshold for the amber and red distinction below legal minimums. A tyre with a tread depth of 3mm is legal, Whether it is classified amber or red on a health check depends on the individual technician, the garage's commercial targets that week, and the assessed likelihood that the customer will authorize the work. This individual described a specific dynamic that they observed repeatedly. When a technician identifies amber or red items on a courtesy check, the items are presented to the customer by the service advisor. The service advisor's role is customer-facing, and their communication around additional work is, according to our source, influenced by training that emphasizes conversion of advisory items into authorized jobs. The language used matters significantly. Items described as dangerous or unsafe create urgency regardless of whether the technician has used those words in their report. Our source described service advisors, themselves included at certain points in their career, presenting borderline advisory items in language stronger than the technician's actual assessment, because stronger language produced higher authorization rates. The financial consequence for customers is real. A full set of brake pads and discs at a main dealer might cost between £400 and £800 depending on the vehicle. If a customer authorizes that work based on an amber item that was genuinely borderline, they may have spent £500 on work that was not yet necessary. Multiplied across a service department's weekly volume, according to our source, the revenue generated by amber to authorized conversion is substantial, and there is an element of the courtesy check process that most customers are unaware of entirely. Point number 3. Parts margins are where garage profitability is built, and the customer almost never sees the structure. When a garage recommends a repair and supplies the parts to complete it, they charge you for those parts at a marked up price. This is standard practice, is legal, and is not inherently unreasonable. The garage sources, stocks, and handles the part, and a margin is applied. What our source described is the degree of that margin and the way it varies by situation. At franchised main dealers, parts are typically sourced from the manufacturer's parts network at trade prices and sold to customers at retail prices listed in the manufacturer's parts catalog. The margin between trade and retail on a common replacement part, according to this individual, routinely runs between 40 and 70%. A part that costs the dealer £40 is listed in the catalogue at £68. The customer pays £68. That is before labour. At independent garages, the situation varies more widely. Some independents operate on lower margins and source parts from reputable factors at competitive prices. Others, according to our source parts from the cheapest available supplier, including non-OEM pattern parts that may be significantly lower quality than genuine components, and charge the customer a price comparable to genuine parts. This individual described witnessing pattern parts being fitted to customer vehicles where the customer had not been informed they were not receiving genuine components. Not universally, not at every garage they worked at, but as a practice that existed and was not always disclosed. The distinction matters for the customer because pattern parts vary widely in quality. For consumable items such as filters or wiper blades, the difference is typically minimal. For safety-critical components such as brake calipers, wheel bearings, or suspension joints, the difference in longevity and performance between a genuine or premium aftermarket part and the cheapest available pattern part can be significant. Our source described the customer's position as structurally uninformed. You are paying for a part. You do not know where it came from, what it cost the garage, or whether it is the component the garage's recommendation implied. And that information gap, according to this individual, is not accidental. It is the environment in which garage profitability operates. Point number 4. Time is the resource garages sell, and the relationship between the time billed and the time actually spent on your car is not always what you would expect. Our source described the flat rate system in detail. Every job in a franchise garage has a published time allocation. Replacing a set of front brake pads might be allocated 45 minutes. An experienced technician might complete that job in 25 minutes. They bill the customer for 45 minutes of labor. They move to the next job and bill 45 minutes for that. In a working day, a skilled technician can bill significantly more hours than they have actually worked. This practice is standard in the industry. It is disclosed in the sense that the customer is quoted a job price rather than an hourly rate for that specific job. But according to our source, customers who believe they are paying for 45 minutes of a technician's actual time and attention on their car are frequently mistaken. The second element of this, which our source described as more significant, relates to what happens when multiple customer cars are in the workshop simultaneously. Work is often interrupted. A car might be started, paused while a part is sourced or a query is answered, and returned to later. Our source described situations where a car sat untouched in the workshop for 2 hours of a 3-hour booking because the technician was occupied on other vehicles. A part had not arrived, or the job had been poorly scheduled. The customer is not informed of this. The car is described as being worked on. The collection time is not adjusted. The labor charge is not reduced. This individual did not describe this as unusual. They described it as the normal operational reality of a busy workshop. And within that workshop reality, there's another practice our source described that customers would find deeply uncomfortable if they witnessed it. Point number 5. Your car is driven while it is in the workshop. That is expected. A road test after certain repairs is legitimate and necessary. What our source described is driving beyond what is necessary or disclosed. This individual described a culture in workshops, particularly among younger technicians, of using customer vehicles as an informal test of what they could do. Not in every garage, not as policy, but as a pattern of behavior that was tacitly tolerated in workshops where management was not attentive or did not prioritize customer vehicle care. A sports car or a high-performance vehicle arriving for a service created, in the workshops our source worked in, a particular interest from certain colleagues. Our source described test drives of customer vehicles that lasted significantly longer than necessary, reached speeds and used the vehicle in ways the customer had not consented to, and were not recorded in any way. This individual was careful here. They said this was not universal behavior and was more common in certain environments than others. But they also said that when it happened, there was no mechanism for the customer to know. The mileage added by a longer than necessary test drive might be 2 or 3 miles. The customer would not notice it. The behavior would not appear on any document. Our source described feeling complicit in this culture by not reporting it when they witnessed it, and describing it now as one of the professional regrets they carry from that period. Beyond vehicle use, there is another element of workshop culture that this individual described, which relates to how customer belongings and vehicles are treated during the time they are in care. Point number 6. The interior of your car is accessed during a service. Boot, glove box, center console. Sometimes for legitimate reasons, sometimes not. Our source described this carefully. During many routine service operations, access to the boot or interior is necessary, checking spare tire condition, accessing fuse boxes, locating the vehicle identification number. These are legitimate. What this individual described beyond that was a culture of casual inspection of customer belongings that extended further than operational necessity. Not theft, they emphasized. In their experience across multiple sites over 14 years, actual theft from customer vehicles was genuinely rare and, when it occurred, was treated seriously by management. What they described was something more ambient. Valuables left in cars were noticed and discussed, a laptop bag on a back seat, a watch left in a door pocket, cash visible in a glove box. Our source described this not as a precursor to theft, but as an illustration of how the boundary between a customer vehicle and a workspace becomes blurred across a working day in a busy workshop. This individual's advice, offered without being asked, was that nothing of value should be left in a vehicle submitted for service. Not because theft is likely, because the vehicle is in an environment where a number of people will have access to it, where professional standards vary between individuals, and where no record is kept of who entered the vehicle and when. That advice, according to our source, was something most experienced people in the industry follow themselves without thinking and almost never share with customers. But these practices, uncomfortable as they are, involve what might be described as the margins of the service experience. What our source described in the following points moves closer to the center of it. Point number 7. Warranty claims and service records interact in ways that can significantly harm the customer without any single person making a decision to harm them. Our source described the warranty claim process from the technician and service advisor side. When a customer brings a vehicle with a fault that may be covered under manufacturer warranty, the claim must be submitted to the manufacturer for authorization and payment. The manufacturer pays the dealer at a warranty labor rate, which is typically lower than the standard retail labor rate charged to customers. This creates a situation where warranty work is less profitable for the dealer than customer pay work. According to our source, this financial reality influences how warranty claims are classified and pursued. This individual describes situations where a fault that might qualify for warranty coverage was classified in a way that directed the repair toward customer pay rather than warranty. Not always deliberately, sometimes through a conservative interpretation of what the warranty covers, sometimes through insufficient investigation of whether a warranty route existed, but the direction of the financial incentive, according to our source, is consistent and clear. For customers, the consequence can be significant. A repair that should have cost nothing under a valid warranty claim might cost several hundred or several £1,000s if it is directed to customer pay instead. Our source described one case where an engine management fault on a vehicle well within its manufacturer warranty period was attributed to a non-genuine part found during the service, removing the warranty entitlement. The customer was not informed of the warranty route that had existed before that finding. They paid approximately £900. Our source also described the service record as something that can be manipulated in ways that affect future warranty claims and vehicle resale value, without any document being falsified. Stamps in a service book can be applied after the fact. Service intervals can be recorded at different mileages than they actually occurred. A vehicle whose service history shows regular, timely attention may have received that attention less consistently than the record implies. This does not require forgery. It requires a service advisor with access to the record and a reason to ensure it presents well. But none of what we have covered so far comes close to what our source told us next. This is the part the industry will not want you to hear. Point number 8, advisory notes on MOT certificates and what can happen to them before the customer sees the results. The MOT test is conducted by an authorized DVSA tester. The result is recorded on the official MOT database, which is publicly accessible. A vehicle is either passed or failed. The certificate is issued. This part is, in our source's description, robust and resistant to manipulation. What is not on the official certificate in the same accessible way are the advisory notes. Advisories are items that are not yet at the level of an MOT failure, but are noted by the tester as requiring attention in due course. They appear on the certificate. They are recorded on the DVSA system. But according to our source, the way advisories are communicated to customers is entirely at the discretion of the garage. This individual described a practice they encountered at more than one site. Advisory notes that had commercial value, meaning advisories that, if communicated effectively, were likely to result in the customer authorizing additional work, were emphasized clearly and sometimes verbally upgraded in urgency. Advisory notes on items for which the garage had limited commercial interest or items that were minor and unlikely to generate revenue were mentioned briefly or not mentioned in the verbal summary at all. The certificate is provided to the customer. The information is technically available, but in the practical experience of most customers, the advisory is what the service advisor describes it as. An item mentioned in passing over the phone is processed differently by the customer than an item described as something we really would encourage you to address before winter. Our source described this not as concealment, but as selective emphasis. The advisories are communicated, but the degree of emphasis applied to each one correlates with the commercial value of the work involved, rather than the safety significance of the item. There is a second element to this point that our source raised unprompted and described as the practice they found most difficult to reconcile with their professional responsibility. Vehicles that present for MOT test with faults that the garage could repair before the test are, in some cases, allowed to fail the test when a pre-MOT inspection should have identified and flagged the fault beforehand. This individual described a pattern where a vehicle is booked for an MOT and a service simultaneously. The service is completed, the vehicle goes forward for the MOT. The MOT reveals a failure item, for example, a brake issue or a suspension component. The customer is informed and the repair is recommended. The point our source made was this. In several cases they were aware of, the failure item was visible and identifiable during the service that preceded the MOT. It was not flagged before the test because identifying it after the test as a failure item generated an automatic sense of urgency in the customer that flagging it during the service did not. A customer told during a service that a suspension joint is getting close to needing attention might ask to think about it. A customer told their car has failed its MOT because of the suspension joint is highly likely to authorize the repair immediately. The item is real, the repair is necessary, but the sequence in which it is presented is managed for commercial effect. Our source described reaching a point in their career where they could no longer present this sequence to customers without feeling that they were manipulating rather than informing. That discomfort was, they told us, the proximate reason they ultimately left. Point number 9. Our source left the industry because the accumulation of what they had participated in and witnessed became incompatible with how they wanted to work. They were not dismissed. They were not investigated. They left of their own choice, accepting a significant income reduction to do so. They agreed to speak to us because they believe the customer's position in the UK garage relationship is structurally weak in ways that most customers do not understand and the industry does not correct, because the incentives run in the opposite direction. Here is what our source said you should do. Use the DVSA MOT history checker for your vehicle before every service. It is free and it is public. It shows every MOT result, every failure item, and every advisory note recorded on your vehicle. Compare what it says against what your garage communicates to you. If advisories appear in the official record that were not mentioned verbally, that is information about how that garage communicates. When a courtesy check is presented to you, ask the service advisor to describe precisely why any amber or red item requires attention at this visit rather than at your next service. Ask for the specific measurement or condition assessment that prompted the classification. If they cannot provide it, ask to speak to the technician who conducted the check. If you are told your car needs a part, ask whether it is a genuine manufacturer part or an aftermarket component and ask which manufacturer it comes from. Write down the response. You are entitled to this information. A garage that declines to answer is telling you something. If you are paying for a repair that you believe may be covered by a manufacturer warranty, contact the manufacturer directly before authorizing customer pay repair. Do not rely on the garage to pursue the warranty route on your behalf without confirming they have done so. And if a garage has recommended work that you are uncertain about, you are entitled to take the vehicle elsewhere for a second assessment before authorizing anything. A garage that actively discourages a second opinion is telling you something. 3 things to remember. The person presenting your service results works for the organization that profits from your decisions. The MOT advisory system is publicly accessible and does not depend on anyone's verbal summary. And the customer who asks specific, informed questions about their vehicle is treated differently from the customer who does not. One question for the comments. Has a garage ever recommended work that a second opinion told you was unnecessary or could wait? Tell us what happened.